All right, let me get that chat over there too so I can see all you guys and girls. Very cool. All right, so I'm going to zip through a couple slides really quick just because I want to share. You guys should be able to see this okay. So what I want to do is I want to talk about we know there's a lot of issues with privilege. One of the key things about phishing attacks, privilege obviously being one of the most annoying things that people are going to exploit. But once they exploit that and they've gotten in, what are they looking for? So the first thing that everybody is after is passwords, right? So they're going to try to crack, Chrome's password manager, which is absolute joke. Edge, credential manager, SAM database, Firefox passwords, all that stuff. Brave, everybody's got their own little password manager. And the problem is that's the first thing they're going to go after. And it is the easiest to crack and to dump all those passwords out of there and be able to kind of grab the account access that they want. Then they can start fishing around other sites and things and access and stuff like that. So I'm going to get through this really quick because I want to go over here to get to this one. All right. And so it's another slide that I want to get to right here, this one. So there is a number of layers of defense, and the primary largest threat vector, biggest threat surface area is attacks against privilege and passwords. They make up the majority of attempts that actually happen. So in the chat, if you would, who's running a password and who has a password manager for them? And then, so that's question number one. So is everybody using like a commercial password manager? Don't have to say what it is, just yes or no. If you want to say what it is, that's fine too. We don't care. Um, so we got some 1Password, yes, got some stuff out there. So if you're not using a commercial password manager, IT Glue's password manager doesn't count. You really should be using a commercial password manager, right? Something that truly focuses on the job of password management. So now so this is the biggest area that we have to try to protect. And it's also probably two of the easiest things that we can do. Obviously, we're going to work, we're doing auto elevate already for privilege, but we want to make sure that we're controlling passwords, not just for us. Here's the tricky bit. It's down to the customers as well. So if you think about it, you guys spend all this time, you protect your passwords, you got this tool that you paid for, whether it's Bitwarden or um, a password manager tool or it's Keeper, it's whatever it is, right? So you guys do all this work to protect your passwords. And then you have to share those with somebody at the company, or they have to share a password with you, but they're not using the same platform. So that's usually, and as much as we don't want to admit it, we're not saying anybody's got to raise their hand, but that's when they end up in Teams chats and Slack channels and emails and text messages, and because we're all not sharing the same thing. Here's another problem, right? So with passwords, the other challenge with this is when we do share a password with them or we give them the password in some way, even if we do a one-time share through different platforms that let you do stuff like that, when they go use that password, usually it's in a website somewhere, whether it's a Microsoft login or whatever. What's the first thing that pops up when they go to log into that site? Chrome's password manager, Edge password manager, Firefox password manager. Hey, do you want to save this password? And now your super secure password that you spent all this time protecting is now in their Chrome browser extension for passwords, which is just incredibly easy to grab. And so those are the two things that like managing privilege and managing passwords are absolutely just critical. And then there's a host of other security tools that you guys throw in place. But I wanted to kind of show you by stacking these things together, the kind of threat surface area that you're covering. By stacking things like privilege management with blocking utility, with password management, you're covering an enormous threat surface area. I know this is a real challenge to get people downstream to use a password manager, but in order for us to really control those, like we really need to get everybody kind of in the same password manager and the same platform. So that's what the focus of our conversation is going to get today. So this one right here, this is exactly what happened. And this is one of the things I wanted to share with you guys. Like this happened to an MSP. They were able to breach this. I think it was a CTO or a CFO. He had credentials to everything because he's the CFO. And they got into their Azure account, spun up $500,000 worth of Azure servers for the month, running a crypto mining little scam. And then Microsoft sent them the bill, and they're like, "Hey, this doesn't look right." And that's exactly what happened. He's like, "Well, we obviously got hacked here. Like, we wouldn't do this." And Microsoft, they don't know that. So Microsoft is kind of like, "Hey, what do you want us to do about this?" And Microsoft's like, "Well, we'd like you to pay it." And so now they're stuck with a $500,000 bill. So like that's what people are after. It's trying to get, it's usually the top two things: breach privilege, get passwords, get access to other stuff. So we really got to do a better job of controlling that. Of course, like this is just a recent spat um, of issues that have popped up, that we've seen breaches in the area in recently in our community and in like even just in local government around us and stuff like that. So cyber insurance, you gotta have password manager. Like it's on every requirement, on every form. You got to do it. And if the customers want better rates and they want those breaks and they want to get the best coverage and the chance of not potentially getting a claim denied, they've got to have a password manager. So, and then and it solves a tremendous amount of problems. It's not just about protecting passwords, but you've got all your 2FA stuff, your TOTP stuff. You got the ability to securely share between yourselves and your customers and you, right? And then you want to be able to have them feel secure and safe. So one of the key things about Password Boss is the fact that it's what's called a split vault system. And that allows us to have our own personal vaults that you can't see and a business vault. Technically, unless you're the one sharing the passwords, you can't see them either. So that's a very different approach from something like IT Glue, for example. So in IT Glue, what do? You give your techs access to all of the customers and all of the customer passwords. Anybody could pull those out anytime they wanted to, right? Or they could access that password anytime they want to. And there's so many people accessing so many passwords, nobody's reading that report. So basically, everybody has carte blanche access, right? And you can see all those passwords. This is very different operation that I'm going to show you in a few minutes with how Password Boss works. You cannot see those passwords unless they're shared with you and you have the correct permission in that share. So that's going to be a critical component to keeping those passwords safe. But that's going to be a big one. So the cross use. So once we give them a place where they can do business and personal, where they can feel pretty comfortable about that, that's a big deal because then you can shut off Chrome password storage. It's a registry update. You can do that through your RMM. You can shut off Chrome from asking, shut off Firefox from asking. And you can in Apple devices, you can disable keychain, right? When you use the business Apple ID. So things like that. That way they can't put secure passwords that you guys are really trying to protect into another system. But they can't do that until they have a nice, quiet, comfortable place that they can, because even though we tell them you can't put your own, don't do your own personal stuff on your work computer, they all do it anyways. There's no stopping that. So once you give them a secure place and they feel comfortable that they can't see your passwords and you can't see their passwords, then they'll start to put their stuff in there. You can disable these other password storage methodologies and we can start to protect and do secure sharing across both ourselves and our clients. But not a lot of password tools operate like that. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I know how IT glue works. So I know I wouldn't feel comfortable putting my personal stuff in my glue. Just not, that would never happen. Because I know at some level, the MSP can have access to that. And then Password Boss, that's just not the case. Um, so cool. Let's get out of that. Now let's go to the actual application itself. So has anybody seen Password Boss in the past? Give me a yes or no in the chat there. Nope, nope. Okay. All right. Well, awesome. Well, this is just new for everybody. That's fancy. I'm excited. All right. So, um, so we've done a huge rewrite of this application. Originally, you might notice down here in the corner right here is an actual physical thick client application. Um, we got rid of that. That is now gone. We've moved to a web application with a brand new plugin, a brand new iOS app, brand new Android app, brand new everything. So it's just got a completely new rewrite. So let me take you through some of the new features and how we store passwords and how we auto log in and how we do all that fun stuff. Now, some people would say there's nothing sexy about passwords, but I think it's pretty cool. All right, so let's go. All right, so I'm going to log in. I logged in earlier before the demo, but I can have this auto set to timeout. It is protected by a master password. So when you are actually out of it, you do have to use your master password, and any websites you go to, it would prompt you to log in, including in the plugin up here. So it takes me to our Password Boss web app. I'm going to go ahead and log in. Here's the idea and the concept of using a password manager to its fullest extent. The only password you should ever have to remember, and just as a statistical thing to throw out there, most people have to remember and manage somewhere between in their own personal lives, not even in your MSP life or right IT, right? It's just in your personal life, anywhere from 80 to 105 passwords, which is absolutely bonkers. So in this case, ideally, you only ever want to remember one password, and that is your master password. So let's log in. All right, so now I mentioned earlier in that little presentation about what's called split vault system. So there are two vaults here. There is a personal vault. So I have my login to my portal. It's actually my personal access, right? And then we have the business vault, right? And so now I have all of my business passwords stored in here. And I can do the typical sort and organize if I want to do this by folders or by um, passwords, however, A to Z, Z to A, whatever way you want to sort it. And you can filter through who you want to see. So I want to go through and just see a particular client passwords. Then I can go ahead and set my filters. There's also a really cool global search. So let's reset our filters. So anything you're looking for, you can search through it. So especially this is important when you have like, I've got 25, 30, 40, 50 customers in here. I've got 1,000 passwords in here. You want to be able to search for just about anything, right? And so whatever I'm looking for, I can just simply start to type that. It will search all of the fields within those records. So it's easy for me to pinpoint. Maybe it's a server that I'm looking for, but I don't remember the customer's name. Or I don't remember the server name, but I know the customer. So being able to find records quickly, really, really important, super easy to do. There's also multiple ways you can look at it. So it's just really kind of a preference thing, depending on what you want to see. But when you actually get into the password record, let's do that really quick. So we can take a look. Now, of course, you can copy from here. There's also access to the plugin. So when I want to go somewhere, I can technically just find it in the plugin, and which is active in my toolbar. And then I can just go navigate to that site, autofill it, and let me run in. No, no SSO, Yan. Sorry, brother. We are talking about it. It's on the roadmap, but it's not available just yet. Um, so yeah, they'll have to use their master password. Some complain that SSO is a single point of failure as well. If they have that password, they can get into everything, including your password manager. So we kind of resisted that for a while because we wanted that password to be separate. It is part of the flaws of things like Chrome's password manager, for example, is that if you do breach the machine, a lot of times via remote control, like a remote access Trojan or something like that, then you're logged in. I have access to all your passwords. So I can just go look at whatever I want in plain text. And we didn't want that to be the case. So it's a little bit. Yes, there is MFA. I have MFA turned off for the demo because it just makes things go a little faster. But you can absolutely enforce MFA and make sure that they're using whatever you guys want them to use. It could be Duo, it could be anyone they want to use. So, and you can see we also do MFA as well. So we can obviously not for ourselves. You do have to have a different like MFA, whether it's Authenticator or Duo or whatever you want to use to get into PasswordBoss. But then once you're in, PasswordBoss can be a source to do all of your 2FA stuff for other applications as well. And it can autofill. And more importantly, when you're sharing, it will also share the 2FA. So like, for example, Office 365 logins, right? You've got your 2FA to get your account to log in for each client. You can have all of those in here. Then you've got the password, and then you've got the 2FA. So if I have a team of people that are sharing like a 365 login, it shares the 2FA with it as well. So, and it will auto, if you wanted to, it would autofill it. But in that case, you probably want to pick which account you want to log in. So I'd probably, in that particular example, I probably wouldn't turn an autofill on. You can control whether auto login happens or auto login is ignored, right? That's up to you. All right, so looking at a particular password record, there's a couple just little things in here that I want to highlight. So there is a context menu. There is also a context menu when you're out here as well. So you can see password boss. So I could do things like disable this on this particular website if I wanted to, or this particular page. If maybe I don't want password boss to prompt here, that's a pretty common thing. Like you'd see that with Chrome and other password managers don't prompt on this site anymore. You can scan a QR code. You can generate a secure password if you're just logging into this website. So there's a whole context menu that gets added for both Windows. I'm on a Mac, by the way, you can see that. So for both Mac and Windows, there's a context sensitive menu when you're in there. In addition, you can actually grab it out of here, and you can also grab it right out of the plugin. So we're giving you multiple ways to access your information. Wherever you are in the process of trying to get into a site or getting data about a site, all that's going to be super easy to get your hands around it. When you're actually in the record itself, pretty straightforward, right? Where am I going? And then where there's a foldering system. So there's actually two ways to organize passwords. Since you do end up with a lot of them, there's two ways to kind of categorize and organize, right? So organization is the foldering system. So I've got a number of folders that I've created. We can share those folders amongst all of our customers if we want to. In addition, there is a tagging system. So I can do custom tags in here as well. And we can use tags that already exist, or we can create tags on the fly. That will help us with categorization of passwords. So when we want to pull any kind of reports or build any kind of grid views or data views, we've got the ability to do that. Our usernames and our passwords get captured. Of course, we can copy those. I'm not going to show, well, let's do it. Here we go. Yep, that's the password. So we can actually check that password. And yeah, it's been found in a security breach. And in our security dashboard, we can actually go see like what breaches that has been in. It's something like 3 million. It's absolutely insane. But you get the idea that when you create passwords, we've created a new scanning service that allows us to do dark web checks on the email addresses you put in here, and doing the dark web checks on the passwords that you're putting in here. And we do that sort of when you put them in. You got your TOTP, and then your token expirations and rotations and stuff like that are going to be here. Another couple little neat things that I like, adding notes to something. So if I need, there's some other instruction around this that somebody might need, or something that they would need to know. It's just a nice thing to have. This one, super cool. So even though it's a bit technical, it is really, really cool piece. So there are a lot of websites that we log into. Most password managers are familiar with finding username and password on the web page, right? That's pretty common. And ours can also do the 2FA tokens, so that's fine too. But there are a lot of times where I'll use like ConnectWise, for example. The login, it never remembers company name, for example. So in this case, I know that the element on the page is called company name. It's a text field, and then I can automatically fill that so that when the autofill kicks in, not only would it fill in the username and the password, which is pretty common, but if there's other values you want it to select, like a text box or a checkbox, for example, like always like don't do this for the next 60 days or something, like you can have it autofill those fields as well. So that's just a nice little piece. I really like that because there are a lot of sites that I do use that Unfortunately, they'll have more than just a username and password field that I wanted to fill out. That's an easy way to do it. Now, the other part of this, which is really cool, is the ability to share passwords. All right. So when we're creating shares, we'll just call this test one. So we want to find out. So when you're sharing, you can share with anybody that is a Password Boss customer. Of course, you can share with any groups that have been created. And those groups can be created either uniquely in our portal or through things like Active Directory integrations. So if you have you want to integrate each client and they have an Active Directory, there's a whole group structure there, no problem. You can integrate each client with AD, pull those group structures in, create your own additional groups that you might want to share to. So if I wanted to share something with the whole engineering team, it would be just really easy to do that. In addition, you can add individuals, multiples, and anybody that has a CyberFOX, has a Password Boss account where they log into Password Boss. If not, it'll send them an email, tell them to download. They get a free trial, and then they can log in and get the password that you're sharing with them. Now, permissions. Now, this is a big key, right? So a lot of times, especially with tools like IT Glue and such, when you're sharing stuff or you give people access to passwords, everybody has access to it. So, and a lot of times full edit access, right? And so what we want to do is better control that. In this case, I would prefer to share things read only and not visible. Not visible meaning the password is masked and they cannot unmask it, which is really, really great. Um, when I'm trying to, it's another level of your password process that we recommend you do is if at all I have the possibility, ideally I create a password czar. And in that role, that person creates the accounts and the admin accounts and the passwords and uses the generator to create the passwords in here so that they're all super unique and nobody can remember them, but then puts them into basically like an organizational account. And then you share that with the engineering team. Ideally, if I can get away with it, I want to share those read only, not visible. That way, here's one of the key bad things that we do a lot. It's such a bad habit is that we have a password manager. And then what do? We go here, and then I go there, and then I do this, copy password, and it puts that password in plain text in my clipboard. And that's just universal. It's just how the Windows clipboard works. So I want to sometimes I may, for super sensitive stuff, I may want to do read only invisible, right? And that way that disables their clipboard. They can't copy it in. However, you can still autofill. So I can autofill in 365 credentials. I just don't have the ability to see what the password is. And so a lot of times it's just a more secure way to further tighten and add some additional password controls to what you guys are already doing. Um, and then this is really nice. So if I wanted to share my Hulu login with my sister, right, or my brother, then I can very easily do that. And I can say, look, I'll give it to you till tomorrow at noon, and then it'll expire and disappear out of their vault. And then you just save your share. Everybody has that, will show up in their vault almost immediately, which is really cool. And that is another key thing to this new architecture that we built for Password Boss, is that the underlying architecture and cloud structure makes sharing almost instantaneous and password updates almost instantaneous across all your devices. So it is incredibly fast and syncs almost immediately across to everything. Especially being a web app, it makes things just so much better. All right, so that's passwords. That's the big part of the application. Everybody wants to make sure that those passwords are there, they're secure, they can control sharing, they can control visibility, they can control clipboard and copying and things like that. So I wanted to kind of get that out of the way, but there is a lot of other stuff that we have the ability to do. And by the way, if you guys got any questions as we're going through, fire away. I'm watching. So another thing that's in here is things like digital wallet. One of the things that you might be able to do in a lot of password tools is share a password, but there's a lot of other sensitive information that you would want to be able to share that they're really, if we think about it, there's not a really good mechanism for doing that. So think about credit card numbers and addresses and accounts expirations and CVVs, all that stuff like that. Like I might need to share that with somebody, and I want to have the ability to kind of do that, but there isn't a good method for that. But in Password Boss, we can. So we have the ability to, I could share this with somebody if I needed to. Again, same sharing principles, and whether how much access to that info, to share, read only, not visible, things like that. When do I want to cancel that if I need to? Hey, get your flight booked by, end of the week, because after that, my credit card is going to disappear out of your vault, things like that. Um, Personal info is kind of like an address book. So it's just a collection of whether it's going to be addresses, company information, phone numbers. It's a secure. Here's one of the key things to note about this is everything in here is secured and encrypted. So every object, there's nothing in the database that's in plain text. Every object is completely encrypted. So if you want a safe place to really kind of store like a lot of different types of information, this is going to be the place to put it. So we've got, we can add new address data, name, company, email addresses. We'll check those if you want. We can add those to the dark web search. It's in options and settings that you can add that, and then it'll dark web search any email addresses you put in here. Make sure that they haven't been found. Most things have been found in some breach somewhere, unfortunately. It is just how it is. But one of the other cool things you can do with all of this profile information is you can combine personal info with digital wallet to basically create identities. So this is great for somebody like me, for example. I travel a lot for CyberFOX. I go to a lot of shows, I do a lot of events, I travel around the world for them. So I have a corporate credit card, but it's part of it is my personal information, my name, email address, that would be on my personal contact record, and the corporate information, which might be the corporate card, the corporate address for the card information, not my own personal address, right? And so you can combine those into different identities. A lot of tools, it's basically based on maybe a profile record that's created. It's very hard to blend those profiles without creating multiples. Password Boss can do that. It can blend any kind of profile and identity information and pull it all together into one unique item so that if I want to autofill something, I can simply just choose that identity. So like this one, for example, probably should say corporate identity. There we go. So now I have my corporate identity, which has all of the elements from that I've pulled from the personal info tabs, right? Pulled all that data together for us. You've got a secure note section. This is really cool. So think about stuff like this. Or if you anybody manage any accountants? So like there's business tax IDs in there, sensitive business information, there's income data that's been spent. Then you got personal information like social security numbers. Like if I want to invite somebody to help me with something and I need to share something that is potentially super, super sensitive, secure notes is a great way to do that. So if you just have random, like some unstructured, I would say like unstructured data, driver's license numbers is a good example. I want to share that with somebody else. Here's my secure information with my DL and all my stuff on it, or my social, or my tax ID for my business, whatever the case might be. It does give me the ability to do that. And then your sharing center is just an overview of all the shares you have out there. So while they are showed and designated in the list of what is actually shared with you, this is just an aggregation of all the stuff that's shared, how it's shared, and exactly what is shared. So I can see that this has been shared with me in this particular account by Jackie. Then I've got this data share down there, and I can go in and see exactly what's in that, right? And so I actually have full edit capability. I am an editor on this particular record and read only on some of the other ones. So it just aggregates all of the things that are being shared, your current pending invitations to shares and stuff like that. So you can kind of grab all that information. It's pretty cool. Emergency access is, it's relatively common out there that where if I set up the parameters around emergency access, and basically it's who is the primary emergency contact. Now, you can control emergency access both in the personal side, whether or not they can or cannot do it, and the business side. Remember, this is a split vault. So I can set a business profile emergency access, and then that they'll get access to the business passwords, but not my personal passwords. You may choose to turn that off, and I can do it for the personal side, right? So if my spouse, for whatever reason, I need access to my personal side of the vault, I can set that up. So just good to have. You never know. It's kind of morbid sometimes. I'm getting older, so I think about it and go, oof, I don't want to think of it. I don't want to set it up because I don't want to like put that out in the universe. So I'm a little scared. But it's out there and it's something we should all do and get it all taken care of. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the security dashboard. So now we've got the ability to go look at some different metrics from what you're basically putting into. It's a little bit of gamification, if you will, of like trying to get people to like, you can because you can see security scores in the portal and stuff like that. So it's just nice to be able to go in and figure out, hey, what kind of, I mean, I probably have 600 or 700 passwords. And, it's a little bit of a mess. And so I know I've got to go clean some of that stuff up. And I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that are in the same boat as me. You got so many passwords. It's just so hard to keep track of all of it. So this is going to help you do that. It lets us look at, do we have password issues that we need to focus on? Right? Or is there some things that I could potentially improve, right? And so my personal is pretty good, but business, it needs a little bit of work. And then if I want to go and look at all of the different items that are that have potential issues, this is giving me a key, kind of telling me what those issues are. So I have a lot of these that are a lot of weak passwords. And then I've got some old stuff, and ooh, that's not good. That's pretty much like everything. Like that's a weak password, it's an old password, it's a compromised password. Like I should probably go in and try to do that update. And we will try to help you do that as well. I can at least get you to the website, auto log you in. You can navigate to the password change page, change your password, we'll capture that new password and save that into the record. And that can start to help clean up the security score a little bit. So, and then over here, there's just a bunch of things that I could improve. So compromise stuff, duplicates, if you want to just take it one by one. I got a lot of old stuff in here. Demo environment, you would expect that. But it just gives us the ability to kind of go through and say, look, we really got to focus on cleaning these up. We need better password hygiene. This is just going to help me get there. Then you got your password security reports, and then, of course, our dark web and email scanning. That's pretty straightforward. A lot of us do use the same lists, if you will, on the dark web. So it's just a matter of, yeah, so right now, now I'll do this one. This is going to be ugly, folks. I'm telling you. It's not going to be, oh, yeah. That's pretty much as I expected. Um, so you can put as many emails as you want in here. And then actually there's a host of settings in here. Normally it's kind of boring stuff that you don't really, but there is some really good stuff in here because I can set key items that I want to help improve password hygiene across both our MSP and potential internal IT, as well as our customers, right, or end users. So we can set our login, our logout activity, whether or not I want to change my master password. Okay, so this is really cool. Recovery codes. So this allows us to scan this with my app, which I'm authenticated to, and then I can generate my recovery codes. So one key change that we made was the ability, and this is key for anybody that's doing multiple customer management, even for internal IT, if you're listening on the phone too, that they can recover their own account without you having to restore any of their backups. So we've got a recovery code process now that we've created, which is pretty slick. They can put the recovery code in. It will let them reset their master password. If they forget their master password, which you shouldn't, technically it's the only password you got to remember now. But if you do, you've been on vacation for 2 weeks, a little too many mojitos, that's okay. You can restore it. You can get your master password reset, pull all your passwords back, and then you're good to go. And you can do that without any IT person who manages the system having to be involved. So that takes a little bit of headaches off of you guys to be able to do that. And then so I can set which email addresses that it picks up all the email addresses through across all my password records and personal info. If I want to scan those, I can do that. And then it'll give me the results and notify me if there's been a particular security breach. You can build your own foldering system if you want to. There's a host of preferences about whether you want this thing to fill in, not fill in. Do you want to clear domains out? Do you want to if you have multiple domains you use, but the passwords are kind of the accounts are the same, but the domains are a little bit different, you can kind of coordinate all of those together, like Zone Alarm, Zone Labs, for example. Same account, different domain, but I need to use the same record. So I want the system to identify that for me. So I can kind of build all that out, build my own tags for categorizations, and then build my own custom views so I can see things the way that I want to see them. All right, any questions on the new password boss? Because this is all new, all improved, all new fun stuff. Can this app help us manage passwords for desktop software or just web apps? Right now, just web apps. We are going to add um, the ability right now. It doesn't do desktop apps right today. That was a functionality that was in the old, this client down here, actually Password Boss 5 has the ability to do that. So they're just working on building the hooks into the web interface so that it can do what we call thick client applications like QuickBooks, for example. It's not their day one, but it is getting worked on. It should be out pretty shortly. Yes. Oh, let's talk about that. Can users export personal vaults? Absolutely. If you want to, yes. So let's go here. Let's go in the portal. So I'm going to go ahead and auto log in. So just so you can see that it actually is pretty easy to use. So in the settings, in your policies, so this is the management portal, by the way. So in the management portal, you can see if you're an MSP, you can see all your customers. If it's internal IT, it's just one client, just you. Um, but when you go in, you can actually set all those policies. So do I want to, back up business profile items? Do I want to restrict sharing? Do I want to restrict profile items from emergency access? So there's a whole host of these, force items into the business profile, set up 2FA, disable sharing. So right there. So if I want to set so that they cannot share business profile items, you can do that. You can also set a host of other policies and settings in here to say that they cannot export the business vault, for example. So we can disable exports. So right there, and I can say they can do the personal profile only, or they can no profiles, right? And so I can break them off and convert them. So when I look at a particular user, if I want to take that person, I can go ahead and convert them to a personal account. So they can take their personal Vault stuff with them, but the business Vault stuff gone. There is a mobile app, Charles. Um, so iOS and Android. And you can check out the your respective online, app store for your device. Can we ensure that our clients' passwords are in the business vault and not personal? You can, and that comes down to sharing. So in that case, it's about ownership. So I mentioned earlier in a bit of that about creating a sort of password czar role, if you will, or somebody that is managing passwords for clients. It's a lot. So ideally, if you're sharing, what I would do is I would say like I have this ADP password right here, and then I would want to share that with somebody. This would be in my master vault, right? And then I would create a share for somebody. I would share it with whoever it is, my engineering team, so that they have access to it. And I would set it maybe as invisible if that was the case. Ideally, I could put a bunch of items in a share. So I could select a whole bunch of things, put them all into a share, and then share that with the engineering team, share it invisible. And then it's anything that ends up in the business vault that's shared with me, I cannot move that to the personal vault. Now, if you give them full editor capability, I can't stop that. I can force domains though. So there is a way that I can take a number of items and I can force them. You can say like maybe it's Office 3 online, whatever Microsoft's website is, the admin portal stuff, the login for Microsoft for 365. I could say in that Microsoft.com, I can force that into the business profile. So that's this setting right here. So what I do is I can put this on. Maybe I do Microsoft.com, and then I can add that. And that will force any password saved in that domain into the business profile. And they cannot put that into, they cannot save that record, physically save that record to their personal profile. So there's two methods that you can control that. And that would be either through domain filtering, where I can force you into the business profile, or when I share stuff with you, I can't move shared items from the business profile into my personal profile. That makes sense? All right. Can we ensure our clients' passwords are in the business vault and not the personal vault? That's a little trickier. So that's a little harder because, if they create the password and they own it, this is all about ownership, right? So ideally, and again, this goes back to changing some process. I can't, I don't know like intuitively that the password you're putting in your personal vault, unless I've got domain filtering on, belongs to you or belongs to the company, right? If they want to create accounts and it's their account and they want to put it in their personal vault, I can't stop them from doing that unless domain filtering is on. Ideally, we don't give them, we remove that level of access from them so they don't have the ability to create those in the first place. We create those for them. Absolutely, Judy. I highly recommend that. Like, look at all the scenarios that you're going through. If a lot of it it's not controllable by technology because the technology doesn't understand the difference between one password A or password B or account A or account B, or whether it's mine or it's yours, unless I explicitly tell it. So it is a mindset about changing the thought process around passwords. Today, our thought process is pretty short. It's create this admin account or get the admin account from the client, put it into something, and then share that with everybody so they can see it. And then when passwords get compromised, I go, man, how did that possibly happen to us? So it is about changing the mindset and changing and adding a bit more security and in the process around password management. So if you have a fear that our customers are going to create accounts in systems and they're not going to share them with us, then if your responsibility is to that system, I'll use 365 as an example because you guys have to manage that. So if it's your responsibility to take care of 365 and it's under your purview and it's you're contractually obligated to take care of it, you should remove their access. Whatever access they give you to get into the portal the first time, you should go ahead and disable their access. And then you can recreate an account with a unique password and with only the level of access you want to provide to them. And then you share that with them down through the sharing system. Now you guys have full control over that password. Once that password leaves our system, I don't have any control over it anymore. I can only control what's in the system. So that means you guys got to modify your process a little bit. So if that kind of process makes sense. So like, Judy, I hired you, and here's my credentials of my 365 tenant. I want you guys to take it over and manage it. You're like, okay, great, no problem. First thing we're going to do is disable that access so that we have control of the account. We can secure it properly. And if you do need access, I'm going to grant you access to the level that you need. And then we're going to control the administrator level access. I'll share that password back with you. So when you do need to get in there to look at something, you have the ability to do so, but we're going to control that access until such time the customer leaves. Then you reset their account, you give them the password, you say, have a nice day. But if you want to fully control that, then that's kind of the way you got to do it. And that would go for any password manager. Functionally, that's the only way you can manage it. No, it's okay. You ask as many as you want. Yep. Yep. Same banks, QuickBooks. Absolutely. You wouldn't. So like that is some of the challenges. Like if it's their own personal stuff, like you can share, um, in that case, you couldn't put Chase you couldn't use a filter on the domain to say Chase goes in the business profile only. And if their personal banking stuff is with Chase as well. So in that situation, what your control method is the sharing of the business password, right? And the level of access. Like you don't give them access to go create more access, if you will, within Chase. Like, here's your account, this is your access, and this is the password for it, right? Now, if it's not your responsibility to take care of their banking, who cares? It could be in the business profile, it could be in the personal profile, it doesn't really matter. If you're responsible for banking, however, then in that case, I would create the account, give you access to it, and I would share the password with you, and then you couldn't put it in the personal profile. But if you went in and you logged in a different way by turning off auto login, you could create your own personal account. You could log in that way. And if it's easier if it's on different sites, like if Chase Business versus Chase Personal, I could use the URLs to differentiate. Um, but that's the way I would end up having to do it. Well, again, you're creating it or they're sharing it with you. So it's either you created the account and the password and you've put it into the password manager and you've put it in that customer folder. So like I have a whole list of customers right here. So I can go see like there's Jackie and I can see all of Jackie's passwords because it's been categorized as such. Okay. Um, and if they create the account and they have the password, yeah, so you differentiate by folders. Yeah, so you use different folders. In addition to, it depends on how you put the password into your vault, right? So if they own the account, they own the password, they share it with you, you can see it's coming from company ABC, and then you can drop it in their folder. I know who that's coming from. If you create the password and you create the account and you share with them, you put it in that particular client folder. So we use folders to sort of differentiate who belongs to what, if you will. That's the easiest way to do it. And you can control those folders, everybody that has access to the company profile. So when we go in and we add users, for example, so let's say that this is your MSP right there. All the users who you add, like every person that you see in this list, when they log into Password Boss, they see the exact same folder structure that I see. So everybody that's a user here, that's what they get. Now you can do this again for a whole other company, right? So I can have like Madison down here. I can add Madison to this, and then I could create a whole different folder structure. And then every person we add to Madison's Florals, they'll see that folder structure, right? And so that's how we keep things separated. And the same goes for the groups and everything else. When we set up our integrations, then we can see like our connectors, we can add Active Directory and Azure and stuff like that for each individual client. So that's how it's going to break it down so I can see what belongs to what company. That's pretty easy to sort out once it's in the app though. And then searching for stuff is great because then I can just go, I don't have Chase in here, of course, but I can just go to Chase and then I would see what belonged to what. Naming conventions help too. But if I want to see, let's sort this by folders really quick. So let's just go by folder. So I can just go to my customers and then there's all my clients and I want to see what's all Jackie's passwords and there's all Jackie's passwords. So it's pretty easy. You can also do a search in here as well for whatever you're looking for. So if I wanted like an Asana password or I was looking for Chase or ADP, they're pretty easy to find. And then when I look at that, I can just see, that belongs to so-and-so. Cool. Right on. All right, we're getting towards the end. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, is different folders. Can the password manager share whole folders? Yes, you can, actually. So in the share center, when I want to add a new share, let's say I wanted to go share everything that's in here, just simply select all. You can see all of the items that I'm going to be sharing. what am I going to call this share? So this would be like the Bilbo Baggins share. Yes, Lord of the Rings fan, I know. And then who am I going to share that with? Right. And then how long am I going to share that for? And then you just share it out. It'll immediately show up in everybody's vaults. And the same would be for taking it away. So if you delete that share, it's almost instant. It removes it from everybody's vault. So as soon as they log in to go look at it, it pulls it from their vault. But yeah, it does make it easy to share tons and tons of stuff really, really easy, and update shares as well. And you can do some share control from here. So I can actually see all the different shares that are currently out there. And I do have the ability to make some changes to those shares. So if I want to change like who has editor, read-only, visible, not visible capabilities, if I need to change group ownership to a share, you can do that all out here in the MSP portal. So you have full access. You can't see any passwords, but you can manipulate the shares, who has access to it, who has more control, less control, read-only, invisible, editor, stuff like that. That's all out here as well. In addition, you can also see all of the devices that everybody is logged into, and you do have the ability to remove those. So if they're like, oh, I lost my phone, right? Great. I can just go find them, find their phone device, and then like there's my phone right there, and I can just delete that. So if anybody tried to get into it if they got into my phone, then it would, prompt for authorization, all that other stuff like that. So it wouldn't allow it. So just some little security stuff. You can do that. They can do that themselves too. So if they're like, I need to delete one of these devices because I was on a friend's computer and I accessed the my password vault from my friend's computer, then as soon as I'm done, I can just go into my own personal list of devices in the settings, and then I can delete and remove that device right away, so that if she tries to go back in or he tries to go back in after I leave and access my vault again, it would prompt for a reauthorization, a key, and it would go to my email and all in 2FA and all that stuff like that. So that is another little security item. Is pretty nice. Other questions? All right. That looks good. Hopefully everybody found that informative and helpful. I'm not going to keep anybody any longer. If you want to see more, if you want to sit down with a one-on-one, answer some more questions, go through maybe some of the more finer details. We just wanted to keep it a little bit high level, introduce you to the new password manager, give everybody a chance to see what it's all about, what it looks like, and it's pretty cool, and it looks cool too. So we're excited to kind of start showing it off. Pricing. That's a great question that being the engineer guy that I don't have. I know it goes based on the user, and I know it's sold in packs, and I think the smallest pack is 25. And it's around a few dollars per user for that. It doesn't matter how many devices. So it doesn't matter like how many of these are out there. It just matters the actual user account itself. That's what you pay for. So, and it comes in, I think, like I said, it starts at 25 packs, and base pricing. Okay, so base pricing for 25 users, it's $99 a month for starting at 25 users, unlimited devices. Luckily, I have all the salespeople sitting right here. So that kind of give you some idea. All right, everybody. Well, hey, look, thanks for coming and hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it. Love having you folks come sit with us, chat, learn some new stuff. Um, if you want more information, just visit us at cyberfox.com. You can request a demo if you want to, jump in. Obviously, we're going to reach out to everybody that was on the call today just as a follow-up and a touch point to say, hey, what'd you think? Did you want some more information? So our team will be following up with you as well. But, feel free to check us out, and hopefully we will come on board and check out the new password manager.